Hello, I am here with another one of my
Oh,
good friends, Andreas. Andreas Hassmann, how you doing?
I'm very fine. Thank you very much. The roof is waterproof. The fridge is almost full. The children are healthy and mentally quite stable, so nothing to complain about.
Excellent, excellent. So I met you, I met Andreas 6 years ago now. We were probably in the Exosphere program six
Yeah,
years ago to the day. So Exosphere was a program in Chile where we was kind of a little bit like this podcast, just diving into all things enchanting. I focus on entrepreneurship, but
yeah.
definitely, yeah, a program which pulled people who were seeking community on one side of things, perhaps entrepreneurship.
We're still trying to sort it out, what that was. It was something, but what exactly it was, I don't know. It was a good time, that's for sure.
What was it that pulled you to the program initially?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I mean, your image of the world changes all the time. And I just remember that I didn't like the world that much before I went there. I was doing my job for, I don't know, 10 years or something, or 15 years. And it's been always the same. And then, I mean, I came to those questions. Is that all? Will that be all? So I decided to try something else. And while browsing the web, I don't know how, I just came across this thing and immediately signed up for it, and then it happened.
Brilliant. Is that a common way for you to make decisions in kind of impulsively like that? Are you one for kind of researching, comparing, or do you jump in?
um, I'd like to do some research, but actually the things just happen. And so when I'm looking for answers to a question, they usually come in the form of something that where I instantly say, okay, I have to do this. So I think it's impulsive, but prepared and impulsiveness.
would would the word intuition fit in there? Like something
Yeah,
intuitively fits enough to just go for it?
yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with intuition. Whatever that is, I still like this idea of solipsism, and and so things that have to reach me would naturally come to me, and I just have to keep the eyes open so I can spot them.
Could you describe solipsism a little bit as you see it, just for people who
Yeah, yeah.
may not know?
I mean, okay, solipsism is this. It's I do not exist. You just exist. You are the only human being in the universe. In fact, you're making up the whole universe. And so now you're not speaking with me because I don't exist. You're speaking with yourself. I'm just a projection of something. Maybe I'm just the guy who's responsible for making you explore the universe of solipsism. And you kind of magically created this idea in your head that there is something like a podcast, which is a channel to solipsism. Something like that.
Right. So the idea being that like nothing else exists,
Yes.
only you.
You're getting to know yourself. This
Right.
is, I mean, the whole life is just exploring yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting on the sort of spiritual fronts. I think there's a lot of universal oneness, consciousness,
Yeah, yeah,
God
all
is
right.
God is
Yeah.
everything. I wonder, like, are
It's
these all
just a tool. I
solipsistic?
just use it as a tool.
Yeah, yeah.
So so just one kind of lens to look through at the world.
All right. if you could tie that into intuition again, so just to sort of make that circle back round.
Yeah, well, then intuition is just a strong signal I'm giving to myself. So what happens in the world outside will, will somehow flash into my consciousness, so I can, and if I'm courageous enough, I'll follow that light. That would be intuition, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. I like how you've described a lot of this, especially, I mean, there's an element of trust and there's an element of courage. So
yeah,
you have to, I mean, even, I'm not sure if it's a chicken and egg thing. You obviously have to have some trust to feel courageous enough to leap, but you also need some courage in order to trust. Especially when there's where we started was how much do you research before making these leaps? And I think this is an interesting one because I think in the age that we're in, where there's so much possibility to research endlessly on anything, and I think that it can feel, I definitely have felt that I should research because that's what a good human being does in an information age.
What does this word mean anyway? If you're just thinking about it, research. So you already have it, and you're searching it again. What does research mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that already brings it sort of full circle to just trust yourself a little bit, It's funny, I've had these experiences here living on the island when, on one hand, I love this idea of the autodidact, the ability to teach yourself anything and having access to all of this information. And I could buy this piece of land and anything that I wanted to do, I could learn about and I could do it. And on one hand, that has happened to some extent. On the other, I found myself with all of this freedom even more repulsed by the idea of finding the best way to do something. It's like, why did I create myself this complete playground to look at how other people have done anything other than to, really dive into this trial and error of how I do things myself? And I guess, some things have higher stakes than others, how to, certain construction things. But when I find myself Googling how to, and maybe it's an omelet or a recipe or, and there's a time and a place you're going to eat something. It's nice to, it's nice to follow a recipe sometimes. But I felt like I was robbed of this, even on a basic level of just, I can make a fucking omelet. I can look at these ingredients in front of me and do something that reflects me in this very moment, not someone who I've never met, will never meet, who just happens to come up on the top thing on search,
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, I think, this research in that sense, like, what is it to search within ourselves and actually pull from a place of trust, of courage, of experimentation, of play, because the stakes are really so rarely ever actually that high.
Yeah. That sounds a lot like you're aiming at that creativity thing. But especially the options. I really like the idea of having options. And to me, it seems like this is how evolution works anyway, just maximizing options, or those people survive who have the most options available. And now with the internet, you just get images of options. You could be this, you could be that. I mean, I could be Elon Musk. Actually, there's nothing that keeps me from being Elon Musk, but I am not. And the options are all there, but somehow I don't see them, or I don't harvest them, or I don't know.
Say a bit more about this, internet is images of options?
Images of options. It tells you everything you could be or you could have, but you're not being it and you're not having it.
Right.
Yeah, that's not very deep.
So it's like this buffet of opportunity.
Yeah, a
Buffet of
buffet
potential.
and with a huge glass wall in front of it.
Yeah.
You can't even smell it.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, so I don't know. Say a bit more about all of this. I think this is really interesting because you can see it in what appears to be fairly three-dimensional, or at least people tell you what it smells like. They tell you what it tastes like.
Yes. I mean, if we're talking about taste and smell, there's this one acquaintance of us from Exosphere. I'm not saying his name, but he was mentoring us on something that was very close to the earthly plane, and he did what we did not do. He made it to wealth, and obviously enough wealth to lead a life free of worries. And what's happening, what we're seeing day by day, is just food. Food in different shapes. This is what this life with infinite options, well, at least monetarily infinite options, has degraded to. Digestion of food and everything else is not shown, but it's part of the whole thing. We just see the first digesting food and everything looks great, and you look at there and you don't know is okay, this is my option. Do I want it? I can't even smell it. I don't know what it is.
So what I'm taking from this is we're presented, I mean, almost the only thing that you can do with wealth or success at this stage, or not the only thing, but the common route is that those who make it through the glass and somehow become something on the other side also just repeat the cycle of presenting the same image.
Yeah, or where are you landing if you really draw all your options?
Right.
If the things happen that you are kind of striving for and they're happening fast, what's the dynamic in your life then?
So let's try and bring this down a bit as far as different times of your life when you've aimed towards maybe aspects of success that could present itself in an image that you could find on the internet, if you like.
Yeah.
What was it that what was driving you towards those things?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. It's already hard to pinpoint what is it. What is that dream image you're actually hunting for? And then if you ask yourself what is driving you towards that, I think it's nothing positive that drives you towards that. It's rather in the realm of fear or of I don't know, if you're too tired to keep on the fight. If you just think why this, why all this, I just want to rest, I want to relax, and those are the thoughts that are driving you to those dream pictures. I still have something like that. It's at least I've agreed with myself on that, and that's falling water. At some point in my life, I want to have falling water right where I leave my door, and see what I can do with that falling water.
Okay, so I know that for listeners that will sound quite abstract. So so the image that you've got that you're driving towards, which may or may not be unhealthy, but
Yes.
there's this image of owning a piece of land or something with, as I understand it or remember it, a 3 meter drop
Yeah.
of water. So a river with an inclination of 3 meters or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And of course, the options and the possibilities to do something with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be something that I describe as yeah, I want to achieve that. And I think this is not really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But something like lying on a yacht and getting served, I don't know, cocktails or whatever, and sunsets, that is more dangerous, I think. It lacks the
Yes.
dynamics of nothing changes. It's something where you finally arrive.
Yeah. And I know that times when I've been working really hard and I'm looking forward to a holiday, then the holiday also is that image in some way. I just
Yeah,
want to sit down, lie back in the sun, drink cocktails, not have to think about cooking. It's that kind of thing. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that, but to kind of expand that out for the rest of your days. And I think this is one of the issues which is slowly being chipped away at, or rapidly being chipped away at, with the idea of retirement looking like that. For
yeah.
so many it has looked like that.
I mean, what's driving you towards that image of holiday? It's always the notion of you are exhausted and you need that to fill up your battery or whatever.
Yeah, so there's loads of things I want to kind of circle back to here, but so even that notion of needing to fill up your batteries other than getting like a decent night's sleep, you know what I mean? But to
Yes.
really to check out entirely of life almost.
Yeah.
I think so. There's a dynamic in creativity that I find really fascinating. On one hand, I know that if I'm feeling lethargic, I have this desire to create something and I go, oh, not now, not now. Now's not the moment. And it feels like it's going to take more energy from me. And yet, if I approach it, and even if I just set a clock for 30 seconds and I just go, okay, what's the first thing I can do? And I lower the bar so much that just the creativity can start to flow and the energy can be sparked. Usually, it's completely the opposite. In a very short space of time, my energy can go from lethargic to inspired. And it's not based on, it's not based on sort of more calories available. It's just tapping into something that means something to me. And yet trying to cross that bridge is the hardest part. And it feels like I'm exhausted and it feels like I need a holiday before I could even approach that. And so I think that, also people put off so much of their life's calling, if you like, or just dreams, ambitions, playful things for this image of like, oh, when I've got free time, when I've got free time, when I retire, I'll write my book. When I have a whole weekend free, I'm going to get to that thing.
Yeah.
And
there is no such thing as free time. Yeah. It's not. You just rush through it and the moment comes and goes away and I don't know, free time. You were talking about creativity. I asked myself what you mean with that, actually. Obviously, it's tied to a good feeling. When you are being creative, you feel good. It sounds like that.
Yeah. So lots of people talk about, I've been doing a lot of kind of research into this space, if you like, and listening to different people talk about creativity. And in some ways, there's two sides to it. There's this divergent dreaming, if you like, and inspiration and gathering things. And then people say, okay, well, that's not enough. You know, you need to turn it into something and you need to produce something. And so there's this convergence into, you know, refining the idea, turning it into something useful. All of this. I feel like the side of it which I'm really focused on is the first half. And that's not because I think the second half is not important, but I think the second half is what gets most of the attention because it's about producing. It's about the product. It's about give something to the economy. It's about like, it's not worth it unless you've done something with it. And yet, you know, of course, like I can see the value in that, but I want to kind of lift up the previous part that says that you're all, you know, even if you're just producing an emotion within yourself, and you do nothing with that emotion other than enjoy it, then that's a key part of being a human. And it can actually be compromised if you feel like that's not enough. You know what I mean? That feeling joy from this isn't enough unless you turn it into something with rigor, with discipline, refine the process, and turn it into something for someone else to enjoy. You know?
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be someone else. I think it's being creative is you're reconfiguring the world permanently. The next time you look at the same place, it's still there, what you did, regardless whether you sell it or not. But I mean, when I'm being creative, it's like I've got an idea that comes from somewhere. It just has to go out. And I have pleasure actually in transforming it into something physical or code or something, you know. But and if it's a good idea and I let it out, it returns through the back door being bigger, and then the cycle starts again, out, with that. It could be anything, but the one thing about creativity is that it's permanent. It's not if you turn it into something physical. So that's why I'm really leaning towards the second half of what you've been describing.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So you've got the feeling and you've got the inspiration. You have to do something with it. It exists until it exists in some form, whether it's for you or for someone else.
Yes, it's. I mean, it stays in the head, and there is no place for anything new until you kind of got rid of it.
Yeah. So whether it's for your eyes only, that's not important. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So maybe speak a little bit about your own creativity for people who have no idea who you are. You work, I mean, you code, you have a background in engineering of sorts, you 3D printing, bridge builder.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done quite a few things. That is true. Yeah.
Maybe if we could start way back, like what sort of things did you do as a kid creatively? When you think of yourself as a child, what are early memories? Were you inventing? How did you play?
Yeah. I've started inventing very early. It's a little bit has to do with my family situation then, and divorce of the parents, and suddenly I was the man in the house with something like 11 or 12 years, something like that. And so I had to learn, as the man in the house, I had to learn to tinker all those things. And I did almost everything there in the house. And that gave me at least a lot of confidence that you can do everything that you can, I mean, conceive or imagine. there are no real limits about that. And I've been playing a lot with that, and always following when there is something that interests me, I just follow it and try to learn it, turn it into learning. And to have more capabilities, and well, more capabilities, of course, are more options, but where you don't think forward like that, but just being capable of something is, I think that's a good feeling in itself. So I've explored a lot of areas that all have to do with creating things. And I went through electronics and chemistry and I don't know, everything that's possible to do. Well, I mean, we had a history together with an invention.
Yeah, we'll touch on that. I want to go into this a little bit more. So it's a process of learning chemistry, all of the science. Was the theory and the practice very much one for you, or were there things that...
Oh, the theory and the practice one. I don't know what do you mean with that?
So if it may just be, how we're inclined, what sort of capacity our brains have. When I would study chemistry, for example,
Yeah.
the study didn't translate for me into an application, and that gap, the difficulty of bridging this gap of I don't understand how this is useful to me, made it very hard to front load information without application. That's what I mean.
And it's not working anyway. You can't do anything that you haven't done. It's similar to the thing we had before with those images behind glass walls. And that's the same thing with theory. It's the option and the promise and everything, but behind a thick glass wall. And you don't have it until you have it, until you have done it. So,
right.
So theory, what is theory? Theory in this model would be a promise, or it would be something like a map telling you where you could go, but you have to be there to be capable of it for learning.
So would your journey through your creative process, if you like, something's inspiring you, something's driving you, and you start your problem solving, is that what is driving the learning process?
Yeah, two things. The one thing is certainly, as you described it, is if there's a pain somewhere, if there's an idea, in a positive way, that is something that I follow. And but this is more like looking for the tools to get something done. But I'm also using the other thing, getting tools. So my whole house is full of tools that I've never used. And then after a couple of years, they just pop up and are there for the things that I need to do then. So the problem solving is the one thing, and the other thing is just expanding the options by capabilities and by tools.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting point, because I know that one thing that can plague a creative mind is the excess that it can create. So I don't know if you felt this, but have you ever looked around and had the moments of doubt or lower self-esteem and gone, God, look at all these fucking tools. I haven't done anything with them. And there's a phrase in England that comes to mind of, all the gear, no idea. So this idea of someone who's buying everything, but really has no idea of how to use it,
Yeah. I mean, yes. this could happen, but this is not a cause for lower self-esteem or something like that. I just love my tools. There's a reason. There's a reason why I bought them, and they talk to me at that moment, like, take me, you're gonna need me, or I don't know. It's not even you're gonna need me. It's just in harmony with what I'm thinking about. If there's a tool that just contains the pattern of something I've been thinking about, I buy it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love this. And it's something that, you know, I know that people have journals sat around, and I'll say, okay, let's do something in the coaching I do, like grab a journal, you know, and write in it. And I know that I can buy a journal, beautiful, nice, beautiful paper, and I'll go to the back first, you know, because I'm scared to ruin, you know, I feel scared to ruin this beautiful tool with an example of something that may not be my best work. And so this can sit untouched, unused. And I love the way you talk about, you know, the tool is talking to you, or, you know, and I think there's something so valuable here in allowing the excess, you know, that's something about allowing the excess and saying, trusting the intuition. And maybe you buy it and it doesn't get used for 10 years. And then you have the idea that, yes, and I've
got it all together.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a beautiful thing. And then also to allow yourself, like, lower the bar. Like, the tool wants to be used. It doesn't need to be used for the best thing you're ever going to create. It just wants to be used. I mean, these are interesting dynamics. And I think the more I get to know different kind of creative types, obviously we're very different, but many creative people kind of suffer from this overwhelm, high expectation, you know, perfectionism, things really need to look in a certain way. So I'm wondering, you mentioned the word tinker earlier. Maybe you could touch on that, like what that means to you. Like, tinkering is definitely getting your hands dirty. You're starting to actually interact with things.
Yes. I mean, tinkering is learning on the way. It's not, you're not preparing for tinkering. You just you just have a problem. You think of something that could work and start doing it. More problems pop up. You fix them. You attach. You build. You suddenly see it completely different, and then you get the idea that you could use something as a tool which is not meant to be the tool for doing this, but it works. And at the end, it's certainly not of, well, very often it is of high quality, because all that attention that went into that showed you so many mistakes in what you were doing. And while you were amending them, it actually grew to something.
Yeah.
Tinkering is, I don't know, are we finding a definition, or are we trying to find a definition for tinkering?
No, just what it looks like for you. That's great. I want to touch on this a little more. Why you pulled back, or, you know, you'd said maybe it's not of high quality, and then you kind of corrected yourself. Why did you correct yourself there?
Because quality actually has grown to be an important thing in my life. And so you always have to make trade-offs. And I decided, like a couple of years ago, I will not do a trade-off with quality. And that is because that made so many things so much easier. If you argue with your client about how long it will take or how much it will cost, even if you're not within the boundaries of what you saw beforehand, what this would cost or how long it would take, if you stick with the quality without discussing with the client about that thing, that proved for me to be the best path even out of conflicts. This is something eternal, quality. And it has a lot to do with problem and solution. I'm very often confronted with people who are giving me a problem and want to have a solution for that. And this is like the solution is some kind of tool that you, I don't know, hammer on the problem, and then both will evaporate, or at least the problem will evaporate. It's like the antibody or anti-particle of the problem. But this is not the case. It's problem and solution are the same. It's the solution is a problem well understood, and understood in a way that is presentable to someone else, and it's understood in a way that is creatable. And so the quality of what you are actually producing is a direct result of how well you understood the problem. And that is why I said it's not of high quality, the final thing, but the things that come out of tinkering are of course of a certain quality, because they're the end of the path where you actually learned about the problem.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. I love that. So it's kind of, I don't know if I'm throwing another word into the mix, but the standard is kind of greater than the sum of its parts in some way, that where the final thing may not in one way reflect actually the quality of what you've achieved.
No, but of course it reflects your achievement. It's after that it's going to be reproducible and it's going to look different, but something that you've tinkered and that's working shows a lot about.
Yeah. So the reason I kind of wanted to sort of hovering around this question, there's this idea that I've had of like how much is this the standard or maybe even quality of our work, like how much is it really in our control? And what I mean by that is when we've done the reps and we've done the practice and we've put in the work, we've shown up and we've done the work and we've achieved a certain standard average, if you like, and then we can probably go below it and we can go above it, but we can't go super low and we can't go super high. So there's this thing of like, what I'm trying to get at is, I think something that can hold us back is the idea that we're not currently in our best state to do our best work. But if you just sit down,
but you are at all times. It's I think to answer that question of yours, I think it's 100%. You're 100% in control of the quality of the thing that you're doing. You can't, of course, measure your standard if you're doing something for the first time. It certainly would be depressing if you rely on measuring this against a certain standard, which will not be your standard anyway, but someone else's standard. So the only measurement is between what you've done and what you could have done, and those are both roots in yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So this touches on this idea of failure and failure and we've spoken about this before. So
yeah,
the importance or because it's something that I've pushed back against, and the reason I pushed back, like ultimately, again, I agree with where you're coming from. I'm just kind of grappling with this idea of doing what you can is all you can do, so you can do, maybe you can do better or maybe you can do worse, but if you don't even do it, if you don't even begin because you think that you're not in the right space, it's not the right moment, I guess what I'm trying to do is, as much as possible, open the door as wide as possible to action. And that until you're actually in action, any second guessing of your state, that, okay, well, I'm not in the right headspace to write right now. And that
Oh,
may be the case. That may be
yeah,
the case, that you're not in the headspace to write your best work,
yeah,
what you understand as your best work. And yet, if you start writing in that moment, one, you don't know what you'll produce. You may write something very different than you've written before because of where you're currently at. You're
yes,
approaching it from a different angle, and just allowing yourself to start. And this is what I mean by, if you're a writer, then you will what you express, what you write will reflect something of you, and it
yes.
won't be what you wrote when you were 5 years old. You know, the standard will reflect something of you. And so there's this thing of, it's about opening the door as wide as possible to action, and kind of not guessing like what you're able to achieve until you're, actually in motion.
That sounds a little bit conflicting. I like it very much what you're saying, but that sounds, to open the door for action. That sounds to me like you're inviting the action to come to you, but actually it's like passing the door is the actual action.
Yeah, is the action. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's true. And maybe some of this is just, to a degree, mental masturbation, conceptualizing stuff.
Yes.
There's, and the reason I guess part of the reason I go into it is because it's very easy to hear, well, you just need to begin. You need to start. You need to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
And it's not until I found elements of that kind of broken down, of like, really lower your expectations. Like, to me, this is one of the most helpful thing. So when we're talking about quality, and we're talking about standards, and we're talking about, you can always do your best work, for me, in my brain, over the 30 years, or 20 years that I've heard that as a kind of adult, that has added pressure, and that's actually reduced the amount of action that I take, because I conceptualize what quality looks like, and then I judge myself against my ability to produce it before I've begun. So what I mean by opening the door as wide as possible, I throw out the words like quality. I throw out the things like standard. I throw it all out and just say,
Yes.
like, it doesn't even matter. You like, so,
Yeah.
a lot of this, I guess, I'm trying to untangle for myself, understanding the things that have helped me, and through the work that I've done, a lot of it through this creativity coaching work that I've done with this woman, Jill Badonsky.
Yeah.
And they're conceptual seeds in a way. And I think there's, through the world of entrepreneurship, and we're talking about this buffet, the world of hustle, all of these things,
Yes.
there's all of these seeds that have been planted in our mind of what it looks like to work. Just move fast and break things, do this, do that.
Yes.
And they're all
fail fast and heavy.
Exactly. And so I guess I'm in some sort of conceptual warfare with that stuff, of trying to kind of untangle these things that have actually worked for me, because I didn't find any of that kind of motivational entrepreneurship stuff really worked.
No.
Although I see
I wasn't thinking, actually, I wasn't speaking about do the best you can and measure it against something. I was rather talking about being focused. Then it's quality time, actually, if you're focused on what you're doing. And that goes well with you writing something in a bad mood. I'm a little bit ashamed that I can't write a journal. It's simply not happening. I know it's great to have a journal and to go back after years and what's happening there. I wrote a few, maybe 2 weeks here and there, but I never made a practice like our friend Skinner did, and I envy him for that. But yeah, I'll take that from this talk. Maybe I should, but I tried it so often. And I fail every time when starting a journal. It just stops somewhere. Are you doing that?
Not consistently. More similar to you. I go through phases.
Yeah.
I write down dreams, and I journal in phases. And what I do like about it is I have it in a way that I can reflect back on. And so when I do go back and I read those things, I go, wow, this is brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
What gets in the way for you?
So first of all, I've stopped with that, but this was the first thing. When I started writing journals, of course, I researched for software to help me do that while I'm on the way, I don't know. And this almost every time leads to me starting to write some software. And this is where the journal goes. And then it's 2 or 3 nights, and my eyes are, and then the idea of journaling is away. So I tried it with books, and just write by hand into a book. And there I don't really have a time pattern. I don't really have an end of the day where I can say, and now I write down what happened in the day. And so I've completely switched to sleep when I'm tired and work when I'm awake. And that leads to strange time patterns that are shifting even. And so there's no time to do it, but it sounds like a cheap excuse. I don't know. It's a character fault. Not to be able to journal, to get that discipline together.
I mean, yeah. Something you were saying, that when you start to journal, at least in digital, it ends up writing software. And the thought crossed my mind of like, how much is that? How much are your inventions your journal, you know? And of course, they're not the same. But when you can look back,
yes,
and see,
I did that a couple of months ago, just going through my old archives. You know, I've got this work folder, and whenever I start a new project, I get a new folder. And over the last 20 years, of course, I got many new machines, so I've been archiving my work folder all the time. And when I went through that, there's more than 100 projects, of which many I don't even remember doing them. They're just, I look at it, what was I doing there? And I actually find out I did it. I know my style, or how my style developed, and it had to be something with me. But there are really several dozen projects I don't even remember doing.
So if you were to journal, what sort of things would you like to be capturing?
I don't know. There are journals where people just write down what really happened at that day, and there are journals where people, if you read journals, it's interesting to read journals, of course. And I mean, I would have to have a journal and look back at it to know what I'm taking out from that. But I don't know. I think it's a lot of wishing that the time is full, it has been filled, and to being accountable for what you did with your time, because you write a journal. It contains the promise of filling up your time more, because it's running out. I know.
So I want to know if I'm hearing this right. There's an element of the journal is confirmation that you have filled your time with something valuable, something.
Yeah, I think it would give you that kind of direction.
Okay.
If you know, okay, this evening I'll have to write down what I did with this day. Possibly you do a little bit more.
Yeah. or more, or something with
Yeah.
more meaning, something, an enhancer
And
of
then
something.
the other thing, of course, if you've got a long journal, to see your own development. I mean, the world is all that is the case. It's just a bunch of facts that we are hallucinating, or at least agreeing with ourselves on that. But this set of facts changes over a lifetime. Would be interesting. But on the other hand, it could be masturbation, as you said before.
When you look through your software, when you go through that archive, I mean, you took one perspective of you can't even remember doing half of these things, or you don't know what you were doing. What kind of emotions are evoked when you're going through that? Does that give you a sense of, oh, look how I've spent my time? It was valuable, productive, exploratory, crazy?
No, and some projects I say, oh, why didn't I follow up on this one? Why didn't I just finish it up and kept on pushing forward and bringing that to something useful? So very often when I see those, I rather feel bad.
Right. So it's like a mountain range of reminders of unscaled peaks. Half-finished pyramids, no peak.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And this last question on the journaling thing. Were you to have had a journal at the time, were you to read what you were attempting to do at the time, would that have been an interesting thing? So you see this project, you have no idea what it is, you can't remember doing it, and you also have this journal log that says, I've been working on this problem, I've been trying to solve this, that, and the other. How engaging would that be, like to have that component, this narrative side to your...
Yeah, that would actually be interesting, because whenever I look back through my life, there's one thing is always the same. At each point in time in my life, when I look back 2 or 3 years, I always say, what an idiot I've been. You know, those 2 years ago, I would never do that again. I was just stupid. But if you say that at every single time in your life, what does that mean? Are you on a path of continuous improvement? Or are you just stupid all the time? And you just haven't realized it yet.
And there's probably 3, 4, 5 other options. Yeah, but I see what you mean. So the first thing that comes to my mind, I mean, I'm kind of in this phase of exploring kind of this unconditional self-love. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel myself like repelled by the thought in a way, but I'm intrigued to find out, you know, so it could either way, whether you were stupid before, are you now, is it representative of improvement, like you say, continuous improvement? Or even
it's the same feeling whenever you say, oh, 2 years ago, I was so stupid. This could mean that you're on a path of improvement, because now you're much smarter than 2 years ago. But at the same time, it says when it will just take another 2 years for you to realize how stupid you are now. Because in 2 years' time, you will look back and how stupid, what did this guy say in this podcast thing? Ridiculous.
So what's the function? What's the use of that voice? Because this is really interesting to me, because I don't really reflect on myself in that way.
You don't look back in time at things you've done in the past?
I do. Yeah, but I don't. I don't go to stupid. So I'm wondering if it's the way that you're
Yeah, well, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, or
yeah.
it's I have no problem with being stupid. That's not really a bad word. That's
Yeah, but I think there is something interesting here. It's like, what do we do with? Okay, so there's something about speed. If there's the destination, if where you're at now, you could have been 2 years ago. Is that it's like, is that what we want? Do we want to be born with 30, 34 or however many years you've got on your, like, what are we trying to achieve the destination sooner? And that's why.
I don't see how this could work.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't. So I'm just wondering what the whole.
Yeah, well, acceleration is certainly not a goal. It's if you don't know where you're driving at, you have no advantage in being there earlier. This is so acceleration is not it, and you've been talking about stress or things. Comparisons with standards would put you under stress, and that's another comparison. How much time did I waste on this? Or but well, you're sitting in the car and you are where you are.
I like that. So you said acceleration. How did you put it? If you don't know where you're going,
I think I said it's not a goal.
Yeah, acceleration is not a goal. Yeah, I love that. So much in this soup.
So much in the soup.
Acceleration is not a goal. I just feel like that's such a deep sort of thing. Comparison, the destination, the journey, all of these things. I feel like probably hard to go deeper into it with any clarity. Do you feel like you've got anything more to say on that?
No, I don't quite know what we're talking about right in the moment. So
yeah.
No all right. Clarity to offer.
Let's touch on Blue Buddy. This was the invention which you created, I got involved with, and maybe what's the history of Blue Buddy? How did this arise? In as little detail as much or as much as you want to go into.
Yeah. No, it's that was one thing that that just popped up because a friend was asking. He had problems with watering his plants, and we all know what kind of plants we're talking about, and there was no solution for that, no commercial solution. And I said, oh, that can't be too hard to solve. And I just tinkered something and for watering his plants. And that worked so well that I got to the idea, okay, let's do something commercial from that. And then this journey started. That was certainly, this Blue Buddy was certainly one of the, I don't know how to describe that, but I learned so much during those 2 years. And I had to learn things like designing circuit boards and things I've never done before. And within a couple of months, it all came in. And at the end, we had a product. We both had a product together because you've been on board then. By that time, we built a factory for it. Everything tinkered, of course, but still with enough quality. But the whole thing failed. It was good. It was working and it looked good. And we didn't sell a single item, or I didn't sell a single item, at least of that. So it was complete failure in the outcome. But the journey to there was obviously really great. That was the time where I got up every morning and greeted the day and say, hello, day, but I already know you're too short for what I want to do today. And that was really great as a experience, life and learning. So that's the Blue Body. It was an expensive experience, but at least it was one.
Yeah, interesting. So
it cost me the yacht. And that is, I mean, that was the thing. Blue Body was the, I don't know, the third project when I decided to, after, I think it was some time after Exosphere, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I did 3 projects in a row. The first project was small. It was translating the Schumann letters and publishing them digitally. Something very small, 2 months or 3 months of work. But that bloody thing is still giving me money, like €50 per month. And then came the large projects, crypto and Blue Body, the watering or irrigation solution. And I put all my crypto that I had into those projects until it was gone. And so what life was telling me, and this is interesting for creativity, is if you hadn't done anything, if you had just opened the door to action, but
not walk through,
just stayed there and looked out of the door about all those active people out there going up and down and doing things, you'd be there. You'd be wealthy enough to draw all your options you want. But because you were active and doing things and trying to shape the world, what was the word we had at Exosphere to put a dent in the universe or something like that? It was something like that.
Yeah, disturb the universe.
Disturb the universe. Shut the fuck up. Don't disturb the universe. The universe will care for you. Everything will just happen. But if you start disturbing the universe, there'll be repercussions.
All right. Okay. So this is really interesting because on one hand, we both have this experience. So were we to have not touched our crypto at all in the last 2 years,
yeah,
we would have a number of millions between the two of us.
Yes.
And we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. So, I mean, there's something quite cynical about what you're saying in that on one hand, you talk about Blue Buddy, you've got this big smile on your face, a lesson in life and learning, this joy that came from it. And yet this other truth that had you not done anything at all, had you just stayed working and not touched, there's many different ways that you could have arrived at wealth in a monetary sense.
Yeah, with those options, with the falling water, for instance.
Yeah.
But
obviously we don't know that at the time.
Yeah, well, of course not. But this is, I think this is the hardest thing about that is that if your interpretation is don't do anything, then possibly I'd be here with the options, but I wouldn't realize them.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Say a bit more about this, because this is what I've had to take away from the crypto thing.
What you had to take away from that, I don't know. It's hard to talk about that because you're reconstructing everything, so it fits, and
you have to come out on top somehow.
But deep down there, I had a hard time for a couple of weeks. I must admit that I was a little bit at unease with the universe for playing this kind of movie, for projecting this into my life. But in the end, it hasn't been really tough, and I'm over it, and I can laugh about it, of course. Maybe because there is no actual value behind it. All this crypto stuff, people are billionaires within a couple of years without doing anything but watching numbers go up and down. That something must be really, really wrong there within that. And it's not wrong with crypto, it's wrong with the other side. So where's the value actually attached? If euros and dollars can be, blown up like that, then maybe there's not even value in those. And it seems to be bizarre, this money thing. With some of my friends really struggling every day, doing 2 shifts of tedious work, while I'm really privileged with my profession, where I can, like dance like a little diva through the clients' rooms and kind of choose what I'm doing and get good money for that. That's really, really good money. You can't complain about that. But I'm actually working less than some of my friends that are really struggling with low-paid jobs and wasting the whole life. The time is just gone away just to make ends meet for the next month. And all this is measured in money. So I'm not really sure what actually is measured in those numbers.
Let's go to pioneering enchantment as the title, as I think money is one of these. I can't remember how Skinner put it, but money is one of the things, one of the easier things to obtain in a way, or it can solve the broadest amount of problems in some sense.
Yeah.
But
it's too earthly, of course. It's for pioneering enchantment. What does this enchantment mean? I mean, I understand pioneering, but enchantment.
What does enchantment mean for you?
If I'm using the word, it has to do with magic, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think of enchantment as, I think to be enchanted, to kind of to be in a state of awe, to kind of incantation. I think incantation is from magic, to kind of utter something, to be cantar is to sing. I think these have similar root words.
Cantare, Latin. Yes.
So something about, I think of states of joy, something with a little bit of magic in there.
Yeah.
A quality of singing.
Yes. And pioneering means to be the first one to be there. That's pioneering.
I guess pioneering is about, there's an element of like to be the first one, for sure. And it's
adventure, of course. Adventure, and has to do with courage.
Yeah, I sort of see the pioneer is on some frontier, and so pioneering enchantment for me is about just, what you've just gone through is this perfect backdrop. We've got this insane world of value, and where we have billionaires who have produced nothing, and we have people hardworking who are getting paid very little. and we have inventors who could have been billionaires who talk about it with a smile on their face. So it's like, what?
It is magic.
There's a proposal, I guess. There's something about this idea of we're moving into a place of, a world of abundance and out of scarcity. And I think there's lots of ways you can critique that or pull it apart. But in some way, the abundance we all experience, whether it's access to technology, iPhones, ability to create, broadcast, like there is so much abundance available to us, even quite the poor, at least in the first world.
Yes.
And now we've got universal basic income in some degree or another. COVID has, and so there's on one hand this material abundance available, and yet I think we're very underdeveloped in our ability to pioneer our enchantment. It's like, okay, if a lot of these basic needs are now met, then what do we do with it? And I know that, I see rich people, whether it's, wealth on Instagram, where what you said at the beginning, it's like you can truly make it. And what do? You take pictures of your food at restaurants or the ones that you've created, or, I know that health is another big one, even biohacking, and there's some sort of there's self-indulgent, and that's not a bad thing, but there's definitely an indulgence in, I want to feel the best, I want to live the longest, I want to do all of these things. And in a way, but why? And I think that there's these are all images. And so what I'm trying to get at with pioneering enchantment is, it like, okay, there are these images you can go towards.
Yeah.
But unless you're really on the frontier of your own enchantment, like what are you actually enchanted by? That's the frontier that you want to go to.
Yes.
And I don't, given basic abundance of, basic shelter, food and things, I don't think that your own enchantment actually needs you to be a super biohacker, super in tune with, all of these things.
No, that is, if you say things like that, you're already looking across the border of your enchantment where you're working on. That means you already know what it's on the other side, but you don't know what you find on the other side. If you know it already, it's already part of your world. I mean, the whole world is a construction. It's a construction. I don't know if I used to read Carlos Castaneda, a long time ago. That was one phase, of course. And he was talking about magic, and we're at magic here. And magic is to reshape the world. That's what a magician does, changing the world. And so if you're pioneering enchantment, that's the image I get, is you're reshaping the borders of your world. With a little bit of glitter. Enchantment. Enchantment is charming. It's very close to charming, isn't it? It's the same. It's magic as well, to be charming.
Yes, to charm.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this whole kind of study of how magic is intertwined with our society, even at the highest, most obvious levels. We have laws, and these are just laws, these incantations of how the world will be, and then it is like that to a large extent.
Spoken in a certain rhythm and with a certain style, which is so rigid that it has to be reality. As those laws, they create a reality, absolutely. They don't reflect it, they create it. So they are strong spells to shape the reality of many people.
So where did you find enchantment? Where?
I don't know, actually. I like the word very much, but if I think about that, where I see enchantment, how to say, possibly in nature, but I'm not quite sure about this word enchantment.
Interesting. Is it alluring to you, or it's like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. It's not all this enchantment, charming, all those things they contain the unexpected. And in everyday's life, you're so focused on shaping the reality along proven paths, and while doing reasonable things, because it all adds up together in your little mental model. And this model is reinforced by having those successes that you inevitably get if you follow the model and the rules. It all will happen. It gives you a sense of power, but it's so boring. It's so boring to be right, and you know what I mean. And planning something, and it actually happens. And this is why I find enchantment looks a little bit like you don't know what's happening.
Yeah. So with this, does enchantment look a little bit like smiling about the 2 years of Blue Buddy, and then the
yeah
and then not becoming a crypto
valuable
millionaire?
memory now, a valuable memory I carry around with me. And it could have been 2 years of doing the same thing, and that's what I found out, that in those phases of my life where I was walking the reasonable way, or the clever way, I have almost no recollection of this time.
No recollection.
It's like it's like huge parts of the time have just vanished. I can look down and say, I've been at this company for 2 years, and I have no memory of what has happened there. It was good, and money came in, and everything was fine. I could do whatever I want. I certainly did a lot of entertaining things at that time, but I have no memory of that. While Blue Buddy, for instance, or other projects, they are full. They are really thick elements of my recollection, of my memory.
So where does this fit as far as work you're doing for other people and work that you're doing for yourself? There was this time in your life where you wanted to explore what being an entrepreneur meant. And you're not working currently as an entrepreneur, as a way of getting your money.
No.
You know, maybe your worldview has changed a little bit, but with this backdrop of this time, there's a quality to your memory and recollection. How much of that is tied to the fact that you're working for yourself versus the actual projects you're doing? Where are the distinctions between the sort of feeling that
responsibility? You've got the skin in the game if you're working, and if you don't have it because you're working for a client, then you're responsible to the client. And responsible, same, it's giving responses. People are asking you, are questioning you, is this necessary, and that, and you are always responsible. You have to answer that, and you know that while you're answering that and while you're working that, you're fulfilling someone else's dreams. I don't like this. Ambitions, better ambitions than dreams. I will certainly go back to doing something, to creating something, and trying to make a living out of that. I'd just have to ramp up again, fill the treasure chest again, to to
Yeah,
throw out
brilliant.
all those doubloons again for the next thing.
Yeah, great. I mean, I wonder how much this is this is true of all pioneers and explorers and adventurers, these phases of, the reliable and the mundane so that you can fill the treasure chest to go and explore again.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has your view on entrepreneurship developed or changed since when you were, 6 years ago when you were really asking, is this it? Is this all there is?
Yeah.
And you wanted to explore, you kind of approaching the fringes of entrepreneurship at that stage. And
yes, I hated it 6 years ago when we were at Exosphere. All this entrepreneur, I still don't know how to pronounce it. Entrepreneur? Is it something like entrepreneur, or is it entrepreneur? Or I don't even know how to pronounce it.
well,
And all the things we heard there at Exosphere, I was repelled. That the things we were talking about. I liked our circles, and I loved it to be with so many other considerably younger people, I must say, than I was. That was just great.
Can you be a bit more specific about the things you didn't like for people who weren't there? And
yes, the things I didn't like was almost everything about entrepreneurs, about the hard life you have to live, the failure, this consequent fighting against your own shortcomings. There was no promise in it for me.
okay, you've mentioned promise a number of times in this conversation, so let's just explore that word for a second. Like what?
Yeah.
What's the importance of a promise?
A promise is something you expect to happen, and if it does not happen, you're angry at the universe because a great unfairness has happened to you. Yeah, a promise is something that you should be able to rely on. At least that will happen. It will happen. That's a promise. And I didn't, in all those entrepreneurship things, I didn't even see a promise. That there was nothing. And if you're through all this hard work and if you've suffered enough, then there will be, what? Not even that. In many of those lessons, I thought nobody here in this room knows what he's talking about. We're just trying to some guesswork, trying to cling to some verbal patterns and reinforce each other that this is what is the truth. So the business part of Exosphere I didn't really like, but that was for me just a little bit of the whole experience. So the rest was gorgeous, of course. But this following entrepreneurship, I feel a little bit reassured that my instincts were right at that time.
So where do you see yourself currently in relation to that entrepreneurial vision? You said that you want to go back. It's still the aim. The aim is still to work for yourself in some way.
Yes, but I'd rather see it as really reshaping the world in a way that I'm actually only doing what I want to follow, and make it happen that the basic needs are fulfilled, at least. It's not a business anymore. If I do something like that, a business can only be an aspect of what you're doing. And if you're good in this kind of life magic, you will, of course, be supported by what you're doing. And it has changed a lot that I'm not using those Excels anymore to calculate how rich I'm going to be. And if only this and that happens, because I've seen that too often. And know this is a false promise, or this is some kind of illusion. Business plan. The saying is, I like the saying, if you want to make God laugh, you make a plan.
Yeah, I like this one too. I feel like we're kind of getting towards the end, but there's two things I want to touch on before the final question, which will be about the promise. You mentioned something about life being boring when you're right.
Yes.
And I think for me, this is endlessly interesting, because on the surface, and you also mentioned power when you were talking about that. So we live in a culture where you do things right and you can gain power, and there's this allure to doing things right or being right in some way, and there are many manifestations which we reject it, but I think on the whole we like the idea of, okay, I'm doing the right thing in some way. That gives us a sense of, I don't know, at least I got it right. Like, I lived a shitty life, but I did it. I did all the right things. And I guess, power stuck out to me as well, because it's true that power is one of the rewards you can get in life for maybe not conforming, but doing things according to, following the right pattern that can achieve power.
Yes.
A power can be status, wealth, all of these things, which there are maps to follow towards.
I wouldn't even know what to do with that power. So if people are striving for power, I don't even understand the meaning behind that. What I meant with being right is it all turned out as expected. You've been doing things and you expected them to turn out in a certain way, and it happens. It exactly happens. So what is what you gain there? The only thing is, I was right. I was right, but you've still been within the confinement of your world, because that what you expected was already in your world. You were just moving from here to there, and you're in the same world, just at a different place. And that's what I find boring.
Yeah. And then planning.
Yeah.
Where does planning find its way into your world? Maybe even into your projects, versus, maybe this is kind of across context, but this idea of, you want to make God laugh, show him your plans.
Yeah. I've stopped with that, even with my clients. I have a lot of struggles with my clients about that, because they want to see plans, and I say I don't do plans because I can't do that, and I'm not wasting my time devising plans of which I know they don't mean anything. And it always takes a while with my clients until they chip in, or until they agree with that. But I'm pressing towards that. Not really making plans, but rather having an intention. I think an intention, a strong intention, that you always re-synchronize with the whole team, is much more powerful than a plan. And intention is, of course, nothing. You don't say anything about the future if you have an intention. If you have a plan, you are constructing the future. If you have an intention and you just keep that intention strong, you kind of go down the stream with just giving a direction and having enough trust that you reach dry land, and it happens. This is I've just finished a project where I had 6 months for that, and I finished after 6 months with more than complete. And all this happened in the second when I agreed with a client, or we have disagreed enough that we were both tired, not to make a plan, but just follow an intention. It worked out. We didn't need a plan at all.
Right. This is really interesting to me, especially the relating part of it that you mentioned, kind of gathering with the team again. There's some element of collecting where you're at, relating where you're at, kind of updating the intention. What does that look like?
What's a team? That's I'm not really a good team worker, but that's what people say, at least. I think I'm good at teams, but I get reflected back that I'm not good at teams. But that might be because I think of something else. When I think of a team, it's a group of people with a synchronized intention. And very often team is being seen as this responsibility and this responsibility. And if we plug them together in the right way, this is going to be a machine that will be working. I haven't seen that. But it's got a lot to do with language, to synchronize with people, talking about what words mean, and finding the one description of a vision, possibly, that you can synchronize on, and that will shape your intention as a group of people moving forward.
Very nice. Yeah, so synchronized intention, and there's a real-time element, like a plan is.
Yeah.
Plan
is. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't even know what it's used for. Of course, there are plans. We're not talking about every plan in the world.
Yeah.
They're good plans, but in all things creative, a plan has no place.
It's a good quotable. There's so many places I would want to go with this.
Let's just wrap up. We're already.
We've been going. Okay. So being right. There's no place for plans in being creative. Being right is to get what you expect, which is boring. It keeps you in your same, in the same world that you're already in, that you already have access to. And you mentioned that a promise is this great unfairness of sorts, of not wanting or not receiving what you expected. And so I wanted to kind of end on this note of what's the promise that you would like from your creativity or your endeavors, or something like. You've mentioned the word, I think, 4 or maybe even 5 times in this conversation. So I'm not sure how you want to end it, and explore that idea of a promise that you feel, plans are nothing, maybe promises are nothing.
Yeah, it sounds like that. I don't know. Nobody has promised me anything. So I'm not currently expecting anything to happen. and the expectation is the little sister of disappointment. So I have nothing in promises either. It's not really something with a lot of meaning for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't received a promise for a very long time. If someone would say, I promise you I will do that. I can't remember that the last time I heard that someone would have promised something to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the last time I gave a promise was when I married. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of power in promises, and yet
They're binding spells.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's so interesting. I think in combination with what are we promising? Are we promising, like, I feel like I can promise on synchronizing my intentions. That's about as far as I can go, but I can never promise on delivering on the plan. You know, if we're to use some of this.
Yeah, well, can you promise that on synchronizing on your intention? That is something that you harvest. It's not.
What I mean by that is I feel like, at least in relating with people,
yeah,
I can promise that I will go the extra mile. You know, I will show up in a way,
and I believe you.
You know, I will do it.
Yeah.
I'll do what I can to make sure that we can synchronize. Whether we do or not, I can't promise the outcome, but I can promise.
But it sounds like you have a promising future.
Let's end on that awful note. Yeah. No, this is lots of harvesting, lots of interesting perspectives here.
Yeah.
Solipsism, some good quotes.
That was fun.
Yeah. Any last words for anyone listening? Feel like
no. Let's spare them sodding details and just finish.
Good. All right, Andreas. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And I see you soon. You know, when I come with my yacht drifting in the harbor of your kingdom.
In another 4 years, when the next
crypto. All right.
When we learn from our mistakes. All right.
All right.
Stopping the recording.